Quick and easy virtualization on your desktop for free. Hey, this is Tom's Tech Show, and today we're going to be going over a virtualization thing that you can do on your desktop. So, I mean, a lot of people have already heard of and probably even use VirtualBox, but for people that don't, it's a free way to run a second operating system in a window, like you bring up Microsoft Word or Chrome browser, and that's basically you're using an application. Well, in this case, the application is going to be a whole different operating system, and within that you can run those other applications that are native to that operating system. You can still run Windows on top of Windows. You can run Linux on top of Windows. You can run Windows on top of Linux, or you can run, the only one that really is difficult to do is running Mac OS on anything else. Mac OS is kind of off in its own, but you can run Windows and Linux on Mac OS using VirtualBox. Okay, so you go to virtualbox.org like we have here, and we go to the downloads, and since this right here I'm running a Windows box, this is on Windows, so I would download the Windows host, and then you also need down here this extension pack. This helps the virtual machines that you're going to use communicate. So we download those two things. I already have them downloaded. So here we go. We're going to open up VirtualBox, and it's pretty simple just to install. Okay, we go through some basic setup here. And here we go. Okay. So just click next. Basically, you're just going to install everything that's in this little window here. We can create start menu items. I don't really need a shortcut on the desktop, but you can put one there. We'll leave it all default, and then say, and I was going to say it's going to interrupt your networking because it's going to install its own network adapter in networking. This is fine. If you're downloading anything, wait till that's done and then hit yes to continue. All right, and then we click install, and then it's going to just simply go through the installation. It's pretty quick and easy. We got our icon on our desktop, and it's running through a few things. Okay, so now I'm not going to start this yet. I'm going to see now it says there's this Oracle VirtualBox extension. So we're going to run that, and that's going to install these extensions. Okay, yes. Installing extension pack. Okay, so now we have it installed. It's noticing that I had another Windows 7 box installed here, but we're going to click new. Okay, so we want to have a new virtual machine. So I click new, and this is going to be, I have a Debian 9 CD that I downloaded, so this is fine. We click next. Now it's going to ask me how much memory I want this to use. So what happens is VirtualBox will take some of your computer memory and now be using that memory for this virtual machine. So if I have a computer that only has 4 gigs of memory, it's going to be really hard to run like another whole copy of Windows, because Windows is going to want 3 or 4 gigabytes of memory to really run well, especially if it's like Windows 10 or something like that. So if your computer only has 4 gigs of memory, that's going to be a limitation. You probably may only be able to run a Linux box, because that can run fairly well with 1024. We're going to kick this up. We have quite a bit of memory in this computer, so we're going to give this one 3 gigabytes of memory. So the next thing is to create a hard disk. We need to, so you have your hard disk that your computer runs on, and now you need to create a hard disk for this virtual machine to run on. So you're not actually creating more hard disk space on your computer. You're actually going to create a file that's going to be the emulation of the hard drive that you're going to be using. Okay, this one says just to create an 8 gig. That's going to be fine for what I'm doing. Ask me what type. So there's a couple different types. There's a VirtualBox disk image. That's the same as here. There's a VHD, which if we were going to take this machine that we build here and move it into Microsoft Hyper-V, then we'd want VHD. Then there's also VMDK, which if we're going to move that to VMware, then we'd want a VMDK format, but the VDI VirtualBox one is fine. And then we can tell it to be either dynamically allocated or fixed in size. Now, this can bite you if you're running low on disk space. So if you're trying to create a virtual machine that has, 60 gigabytes and you've only got 30 gigabytes left on your computer, and you say dynamically allocated and then start copying a bunch of files, it's going to run you out of disk space. So just know that you're going to still have to have the maximum storage available potentially when you're done with this if you're using dynamically allocated. If you use fixed size and there's enough space to put the drive, then that's going to be fine. Fixed size can often improve performance because as you write files, it's not going to have to be expanding the drive. The drive is already set, you have the space already allocated, but we're going to use dynamically allocated right now. And this computer also has an SSD drive, so that's going to help with the performance of our virtual machine. Okay, so now we're going to create that drive, and boom, now we have this Debian 9 virtual machine, and it's powered off. So now first thing I need to do is click in here to settings, and I'm going to look at my system. So I've got my 3 gigs of memory, and I'm going to give it 2 processors just to make it a little bit speedier. Okay, then we need to go down to storage because there's this virtual fake kind of CD-ROM, right, that we need to insert. Choose our optical drive. We need to insert our Debian CD into so that when we start it, it will boot off that CD and then begin installing the operating system. Okay, so now that we have that set and ready, now I'm going to click Start. So this is like if my computer were sitting there, we're powered off, and now I hit the on button and it comes up. So this right here is showing, it actually shows a BIOS kind of type screen like you would get your BIOS of your computer, and we can pick a couple of different items. So we've actually booted off of that ISO CD. So we're going to do the nice graphical install of Debian. This doesn't take very long. We just hit a couple of yes, yes, yes. If you've installed Debian before, then you know how to go through it. The VirtualBox uses a generic kind of software network adapter, so that allows all operating systems that I've been able to load on here typically can understand what type of network adapter it is and be able to load it so you can use the network. So we're going to give it a domain name, tomstechshow.com. Okay, so we need a root password. Do that, and we need a new user, which is going to be me. Okay, I need my password. Okay, so I'm in the Pacific time zone. I'm just kind of running through this as fast as I can while it's loading stuff. Okay, so now here's where the scary part comes in for some people. Okay, so now we're going to partition the disk, and people often think that, oh no, I'm erasing my disk on my computer if I do this. No, the Debian installation here, the Linux installation here, doesn't know about the hard drive that's on your computer. What it sees is a file that is on your computer. So if I come here and I go to VirtualBox VMs, there's a Debian folder, and inside this Debian folder, actually it's the Debian 9 one, okay, so inside this Debian folder there's this Debian 9.vdi, so that's our virtual disk image. So our operating system is actually looking at this file. So you can see this file is very small, it's only 2K. If I refresh this a couple times, see it's only 2K. It's not very big because we haven't actually written anything to it. So right here I'm going to just say guided, use my entire disk, and it's going to show this drive is 8.6 gig, which is what we said when we set up the instance here. We're going to put all our files in one partition, just make it easy. Yes, finish, do the changes. Yes, I need to write those changes. Continue. Okay, so now it's partitioned that drive, And you can see it's starting to copy files, and that drive is getting bigger. So that's where it's doing the dynamically allocated drive, and it's starting to grow. So it's installing all the base system files, and eventually we'll get to the system actually finishing and rebooting and all that. Well, right now we can talk about something in the, while that's running, about networking. Okay, so if I look at this and I look at the network here, it says NAT is the type of adapter. So this is a very, actually the same protocol and method that your home router is using when you're connecting to the internet. So if you ever see in your computer, you'll see something that comes up that says you have an IP address of like 192.168.1.5, something like that, or 192.168.1.10, you know, something like that, beginning with 192.168 typically. And then you can still get on the internet, but those IP addresses are not valid on the internet. That's a reserved set of IP addresses for private networks. There's some other ones. There's 10.0.0 and there's 172 addresses that are also reserved for not being used on the internet. And those allow us to use those privately. So my house, where I am, I'm using 192.168.1. something, and my neighbor can also be using 192.168.1. something. We can actually be using the same IP address. But what happens when that IP address gets to the router, it does this NAT, which is Network Address Translation. So it translates our address to the regular public IP address that our ISP gives us. Well, here in this case, this is, make sure I don't have to answer questions. Okay. Scan it on the DVD? No. No, I'm not going to use network memory. Okay. So this is actually allowing us to create another separate network on our computer. So this network on our computer will be different than the network in just our private network at our home. So it won't be a 192 address, but we can have it be that way. So if I change this network to bridge, which means now I'm saying just piggyback the network adapter that I'm running off of a Netgear Wi-Fi adapter on this computer, just piggyback off of that. Then when our virtual machine goes to get an IP address and get on the network, it will get a 192.168 dot whatever your router is handing out. It will get one of those IP addresses. So this is kind of good to know if you are trying to, if you have a virtual machine and you are trying to share that with other computers on the network. So if I set up this machine and use it as NAT, then computers that are on the other side of my home network, like if I had a laptop and I wanted to remote into it, different things like that, I wouldn't be able to because it's trying to come in through that NAT, that network address translation, and that's kind of only one way going out. You're not going to come back in unless you do some port routing like on a regular router. But so if you want to be able to remote into it and connect to it easily over your network, then you set this to bridged, and then it will get an IP address from your network. I know that's a long conversation, but it's something you kind of need to know if you're going to be doing any sharing out of your virtual machine here. Okay, so I'm going to say that. Okay, we're still selecting it. Okay, so now we're ready to install some different things. I like the Mate desktop over any of the other GNOME or Cinnamon or anything else. I prefer the Mate desktop. It's very basic, very simple. I'm a very basic, very simple kind of guy. So that's typically what I use. Okay, now we're pulling files here. We're going really quick, selecting and installing our software. All right, now we're here at the very end, last piece, which is to install the bootloader. Here we go. Continue. Getting that installed. Set up. Final steps, and time to reboot. So now this would be a regular boot screen when we're booting actual Linux, and it just starts up just like a regular Linux box, and then we can log in. And there we go, we're running Linux on top of our Windows. So you can do, you know, all the regular, you know, things you can with an operating system, Linux or whatever, Windows or whatever you're installing. Sometimes if there's a website that somebody says, oh, you need to go check this website out, I won't do that on my regular computer just in case it's not a good website to go to. So I'll use a virtual machine, and that way I can take a snapshot. This is another thing that we can do. So if I come here to the VirtualBox control and I go to snapshots and I go take snapshot and just give it a name. So now what it did is just saved this, because you can see in the title here bar here it says snapshot 1. So if I were to come to this little box, so now here I've taken that snapshot. So you see there's a snapshot. So I come here and I'd say create an empty file. This is a junk document, blah blah blah. I open it up, I put a bunch of garbage in it. Okay, fine. Save that. Okay. So now, I've done that. So I went to my website that my friend gave me, and oh my gosh, there's all this junk and garbage in it. I can come back here to the snapshot here, and I can say, I can turn this off, system, shut down, shut it down, and then I can come here to this snapshot and I can say restore. So now what I've done is I've taken basically that bookmark from where it was, and I have reverted back to that. So now when I bring up the system, it's going to restore back to the way it was, and we're going to get this screen, and there's that file that was on the box is no longer there because I went back to that snapshot, and now it's back to that old state. So this kind of helps you. You can try out, you know, if you have Windows software, Linux software, something that you want to try out, and you don't really want to have that, you know, lingering on your system. You know, when you install software, you don't want to have a bunch of artifacts, you know, on your computer somewhere. You can use VirtualBox, install Windows, run whatever software it is in the trial mode, and go through and say, okay, I like this software, don't like it. But when you're done, it just goes away. You don't even need to, you know, worry about it mucking up your current system and slowing it down. So lots of different things that you can do with VirtualBox, and it just kind of gets you the feel for how virtualization works. Like I could have a system with, you know, 4 or 5 different, you know, operating systems that I want to try, different flavors. You know, a Windows 10, Windows Server, a couple different types of Linux, you know, Windows 7, different things all on my computer that I can try at the same time. If I have enough memory on my computer, I can probably have 2, maybe 3 of them running at the same time. It's not like a full, you know, enterprise class hypervisor where you can run full, you know, 30 computers on it all at once, but you can run a few things at once and be able to do different things like that. All right, well, that's VirtualBox. That's how to get it working. That's how to set up a Linux box and play around with it so that you can do all the same things you can normally with a Linux box, do apt-get, updates, and all those kinds of things. So it's just like running it on your regular desktop, but it's virtual. And the other thing you can do is once you get that set how you like it, you get that box set how you like it, and you get a new computer, you can just take those files, copy them to the new computer, and start it, and boom, you have your same setup. So it becomes even transportable once you get it set up and configured. Pretty cool. All right. Well, that's kind of a long video for today because VirtualBox, it takes a while to get everything installed and set up when you're just doing a VM. But I do these kinds of videos about technology and different things that can help people day to day with their technology stuff. I also do videos about movies and TV. I do videos about photography, lots of different things like that. So if you like any of those things, then subscribe to my channel and you'll keep getting them, because I make 3 to 4 videos a week. This week has been pretty heavy. I think I've made 10 videos this week. But I do make them all the time, and whenever I think of an idea of something to do, I come and do it. If someone suggests something that they want a video made on, then I do that as well. I've had suggestions and then come back and done videos based on those suggestions. So those are always appreciated. All right. Well, there's VirtualBox, and you can get started doing that today on your own computer. All right. Well, thanks for watching, and have a good one.